Hi, I'm Michelle Atkinson. I'm an environmental horticulture agent here at the Manatee County Extension Service, and today I'm going to talk with you about HomeFlow and how you can conserve in your landscape and with your irrigation system. So let's get started. All right. So conserving with your landscape or to conserve with your landscape can affect the temperature of your home. You can carefully plan and design your landscape so that you can go green and create some energy saving landscape. So let's talk about how. Florida Friendly Landscaping Program is a wonderful program that teaches lots of great concepts. They're all about protecting Florida's natural resources, and one of those is water. And so they give lots of information, including some design guides and plant selection guides, uh, teaching you how you can create um, a Florida friendly landscape, one that's better for our environment, that is better for you because it's not as much maintenance, it doesn't take as much water and much fertilizer and as much chemical to keep it maintained. So the number one principle or guideline from the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program is right plant, right place. And what that means is if you put a full shade plant into full sun, it's not going to be very happy. So we need to do a little research on our plants and see what kind of conditions they prefer and put them in those conditions. So what kind of conditions do you have at your house? Do you have high pH soil? Do you have full sun, shade? Do you have a lot of light? Do you have moist areas, like really wet areas, or do you have super dry areas? Well, you need to look at that and then find plants that match those sites. The plants will be much happier and they will need less resources if you can do that. Ground covers versus turf. Ground covers are great in reducing erosion because they have much deeper root systems. Plus, because they have deep root systems, they can reach down further in the soil and find moisture. Turf's root systems stay up at the height, like 6 to 8 inches, and so they don't go way down where the moisture is. So you have to irrigate them more often because that top layer of soil will dry out more quickly. So you want to look at what you have and determine how much turf do you really need. This ground cover's name is Asiatic Jasmine. Here's another one that's perennial peanut, sunshine mimosa. It's great. It's got these little pink, you can barely see them, little pink powder puff plants. This one I actually have in my yard. This is not my yard, but I have it in my yard. And my husband is an auctioneer and drives truck and trailer around the yard sometimes to get turned around. And we drive over the sunshine mimosa. It doesn't harm it. Now, we don't do it every day, but at least on the weekends we're driving on it and walking on it, and it tends to be fine. We do mow it, so we keep it low. It doesn't need to be mowed as often. We're getting away with 2 to 3 weeks before we have to mow it. And we just put it in, as did this homeowner. We just planted it in the turf and it filled in the blank areas. So it was really nice for that. Let's see. Okay, so the turf areas, you want to really look at those. Do you need them to be a full, like in this picture here, they've bordered the turf with some landscape, which is nice to help reduce some of that. And here as well. But if you have pets, if you have kids, if you do some activities out in your yard, then you want some open turf space. And I'm not saying that turf is bad. It can just use more water, and that's what we need to be careful of. And when you're looking at a swale like this or a ditch type area, turf is a good plant selection because it does hold the soils in place and can tolerate these types of conditions and can be kept trimmed and mowed. And this needs to be kept clear so water can flow through it. So turf does have a place in our landscape. That's not what I'm saying, but it doesn't need to be the whole landscape. Also, with the concept of right plant, right place, we look at deciduous trees. These are the trees that lose their leaves in the wintertime. If you plant these trees around your home, it can allow sunlight to come through the tree and warm your home in the winter because there's no leaves on it in the winter. And then in the summer, it fills full of leaves again, and it can shade your home when you want the shade to help reduce some of the cooling costs in your home. So looking for those deciduous trees to plant around, especially the southern facing side of the home, because it gets light all day long. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. But we have evergreen trees here, which stay green year round, and those have a place in the landscape as well. So when we're looking at the lot, in this case, this is going to be, let's see, north is this way. So this is the southern facing side of the home. So you would want to put some of those deciduous trees in this area so that in the wintertime, you can get the heat from the sun, and in the summertime, the leaves are on the trees, so it's going to shade and cool. Large trees can really help with your heating cost. This would be the west side and this would be the east side. So this is going to get a lot of morning sun. So these two trees right here are going to catch that early morning sun. You get a little sun in the higher afternoon. And then over here, they've really got it shaded for that afternoon sun, which can be really hot, right? So this is going to help to keep this house cooler. Also, these privacy type screens that you can use with smaller trees, and we'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. They're great for habitat. It's referencing the songbirds here. Birds like cardinals and blue jays, they like to have little places to hop to. So having these trees and shrubs, and especially little islands all over the yard, it can really invite them in. The thing you want to be careful of when you are planting your trees is the power lines, making sure that you're planting small trees in the power line, under the power lines, medium trees, and then larger trees further away. The Florida Power and Light website, FPL website, has good information on this. They even have a guide that can help you select trees for the power line areas. And so they call it right tree, right place. Sound familiar? Right plant, right place. But they do a good job on that. Florida Friendly Landscape can help you with your tree selection too. Just know that you need to come out 20 feet from the power line with a small tree that only gets about 20 foot tall. Otherwise, in the summer, when we have our storms and your trees are knocking out my power, I'm going to be upset with you. In the hot summer, I don't have any AC because you put a big tree under the power line. I might be a little upset. But also the power line companies come in and prune the trees away from the lines, and that can harm the tree. And it also makes them look goofy out there. We have, the letter U, the letter L all over the place just because we didn't plant the right tree in the right place. Shading the AC units can be helpful and can help save some energy. These units work very hard, especially in the summertime, and so they can get pretty warm, and helping to keep them cool during this time can help save energy. So you want to make sure you have enough clear space because these do take in air and blow air, and so they'll need to be able to do that, but coming off a little bit and planting some shrubs can help. Another thing is these privacy screens, and then this, I used a real tropical looking one here because we are Florida, right? But privacy screens are great, but the big benefit is it can also serve as a wind screen. And so planting like a wind buffer or wind screen can help with your home because, you get those northern winds sometimes that come in the winter time and can really blow and cool the house down. So having on the north side of the home some trees planted, a bit away from the home. It doesn't have to be right up next to the home, but a little bit away from the home can break that wind and reduce the blowing and where it comes in. Sometimes, hopefully not, but sometimes through the doors and the cracks and stuff, but definitely from blowing onto the home and cooling the northern side of the home. So the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program helps us by providing this free guide. And in our area in Manatee County and the whole Southwest Florida Water Management District, we can get this guide at no cost. The Water Management District will supply it to you. It's 110 pages, full color. It describes the plant conditions, what it needs to, do well in your landscape. So it's a really valuable resource, and I will get Nellie the information, the links, so that you can get this at no cost. They send it to you. They don't charge mailing or anything. You just go online and order the free publication and they send it to you. It's wonderful. So using drought tolerant plants is a really, really smart thing. You don't want to use a bunch of plants that really are water needy, because that's going to increase the water use, of course, in our landscape. So looking for those plants that are drought tolerant is a really good thing. In Florida, we have 2 seasons, dry and wet, right? So in the fall and in the spring, we're really dry. In the summer, we're wet. And if you use native plants, a lot of times they are already accustomed to those types of conditions because they're native. So that can be a bonus. Florida Friendly promotes native plants, but if you can find native plants, sometimes they can do a really good job of flexing between the really dry conditions and then the really wet conditions. Mulch can help save water because it keeps water down at the root balls of the plants where they need it. So it acts like a blanket. Instead of the water just evaporating away, it can hold that moisture in. Not only does it do that, but the mulch breaks down and it provides organic material into the soil, which is great because we need water holding capacity. If we just have sandy soil, the water flows right through it, and you water and very quickly the soil's all dry. But if we have these little organic pieces in the soil, they can hold water like a sponge. And then when we water, it holds that water a little longer. So mulch over time breaks down and provides those little organic matter sponges in our soil to help retain water in our soil, as well as is like a blanket keeping it moist. It also can help protect your trees and shrubs from mowers. If you get too close to these all the time, these little shrubs here, you're going to harm them, you scar them. Trees can get scarred really badly from that. And so putting a little mulch bed around is good. And also in shady areas, turf does not grow in the shade. It needs at least 6 hours of sunshine. If it doesn't get it, it declines. It gets fungus. It just doesn't do well. So just creating mulch beds in these shady areas and filling it in with some shade-loving plants is always a good plan. Avoid placing too much mulch here around the trunks of these trees, because when it builds up like this, now you've put all this mulch on top of the root system of the plant. And so when you water it, it's going to run off of that volcano. We call them mulch volcanoes. It's going to run off, and it's not going to be able to penetrate down to the root ball. And oxygen can't get to that root ball. Those roots need moisture and they need oxygen. And when they can't get it, they start to grow up, and they'll grow up into that mound of mulch there, and then you have roots on top of the ground. That's not a good idea. So you want to avoid those mulch volcanoes. Self-mulching areas are a good thing if you have a tree that drops leaves. This is a pine tree, so it's always dropping pine needles. Well, instead of breaking them up all the time, let's plant some plants down here, and now we have pine mulch, pine straw mulch. Here's an oak tree. Oak trees are known for dropping leaves, especially in the fall. And so let's just make a big bed and let those leaves stay where they're at. And then we lessen our maintenance, our work, by having to rake those up, because they do shade turf. And if you don't rake them up in your turf areas, it can cause your turf to decline. Another way to conserve is looking at your irrigation. Micro irrigation is a really good thing. It's low volume irrigation instead of the high volume irrigation. So these spray heads over here are considered high volume irrigation. That means they put out a lot of water per minute, where this micro or low volume, and this is a little spray head down here, puts out less water. So these are a good idea. You need to think a little bit about your design when you're designing micro irrigation so that you get it in the right place. We have great classes here at our extension service. They're online and you can watch them at no cost. So we have some great classes that you can take advantage of to learn how to do this. We will be having in-person classes again. We're just not quite there yet, but we will be hosting those again in the future. So watering efficiently is really a great way to conserve in the landscape. We often don't realize that our landscapes don't need as much water as we think. In Manatee County, we have a water restriction. It's twice a week is all we're allowed to water. And that's more than what we need. We actually here at the extension only recommend once a week, but a good deep watering once a week. That pushes the moisture down and encourages those root systems to grow down to get their moisture. So an average landscape or an average home uses about 150 gallons of water per day, and 50% of that can be the irrigation system. So you could really, really save water by cutting how much you're watering. Once your plants are all established, which means their roots are all in the ground and everything's growing, they don't need as much water as folks often think that they do. And then another way is to look at your landscape beds and see if you can install this micro or low volume irrigation. That can really save a lot of water. So some plants just really need to be hand watered. These areas are hand watered as needed or just in a drought time. So all of these landscapes, this one at the bottom is one of our master gardeners landscapes, as is this one. I was fortunate enough to go and take these pictures, and they look like screensaver pictures, don't they? But these are actually folks in our community's landscape. And they both have rain barrels, and they only water the plants when they need a drink. They don't water them every week like the automatic controller says to do. These plants in the landscape bed are also very drought tolerant, so they have their irrigation system shut off to these plants. This zone for the landscape bed is turned off because it really doesn't need additional moisture unless we're going through a drought. Large plants like these palm trees, their root systems extend out into this turf area. Turf is still going to need to be watered. So the turf area, when it's getting watered, it'll help take care of that palm. We see some silly stuff when we go out in the field and look at irrigation systems. This one was unique in that it was watering rocks. There's no plants in here, so why are we watering our rocks? That's a total waste of water. We also find a lot of breaks. This is the whole head is missing off of this irrigation pipe here, and so it's just spraying water everywhere. This one has a leak down at the base. You can see it bubbling, and that's a big waste of water. We definitely encourage rain sensors or some type of rain shutoff device. We get a lot of rain here in Florida, and so having something that can say, hey, this landscape's gotten enough rain, let's not run that automatic irrigation system, can really save us a lot of water. It's a good thing. Watering efficiently also includes making sure your system's running properly. So you can set up tuna fish cans. We can help you with some calibration kits if you'd like. They don't quite look like this, but they're the same concept, a bunch of little rain gauges that you set out and you run your irrigation system. Number one, to see if you have good coverage, or, is there a dry spot over here and it's getting a whole lot of water over here? But then you can also see how much water is going out in a time period. So you time it. Let's run the system for 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, I collect this much water. Well, I'm going to tell you that your landscape needs 3/4 of an inch to an inch a week. So then you just, whatever you collect, you multiply it by the amount of time to get 1 inch. So let's say you run your system for 10 minutes and you get 1/4 inch of water in your little rain gauge. Okay, so your rain gauge collects 1/4 inch in 10 minutes. So we know, how long do we have to run it for to get 3/4 of an inch? Well, it would take 30 minutes for us to get 3/4 of an inch. So you just have to do a little math, and we can help you with that. We actually have a free mobile irrigation lab that's happy to come and evaluate your home if you have an automatic irrigation system, and we can help you make recommendations on how you can save water in your landscape. So when we're looking at that irrigation system, we're looking that the landscape beds have that low volume, micro or drip type of irrigation in it. And then turf is always going to need a higher volume of irrigation. It's going to need either spray heads or rotors in those areas to keep them healthy and growing. But like right now, we're in the middle of summer here in Manatee County, and we're getting rains just about every day. So in this time of year, when we have these rainy conditions, that system can be shut down. So if you don't have a functioning or working rain sensor to shut the system down automatically, you can shut it down. Just turn it off. When it starts to get really dry again, then turn it back on. The landscape often will tell you the turf. You can look at it and it'll fold up. Those little blades will start to fold up, and we say they're praying for rain. So you can look at your turf and determine when you need to turn that system back on. All right, so that's all I have for you on conserving in the landscape as a part of your HomeFlow class. These are some of the resources that I used. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions or just want to chat about your landscape. I'm going to send a couple of resources to Nellie. One is how to get that Florida-friendly landscaping guide, and two, how to get in touch with our mobile irrigation lab if you would like to have a landscape and irrigation evaluation. All right, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your class.